Hello, Postables! You're listening to Deliver Me a Podcast, hosted by Kaycee, Jess, and me, Cammie. Special thanks to James Jandrisch for letting us use his amazing music. Now, sit back, relax, grab a yoo-hoo and a stamp collection, and here we go. Hello, Postables! Welcome to Deliver Me a Podcast. We are happy to welcome you here for our recap of Signed, Sealed, Delivered, The Road Less Traveled, especially by Norman. Because he did not travel that road very much.
He was struggling.
Right.
Struggle bus.
He was struggling. Okay, so let's get started with the plot summary. The Postables take a road trip in an old Winnebago in order to track down a small boy who they fear may have been kidnapped. The discovery of a 1980s era instant camera and the unusual photographs it contains send our team on a wild ride across Colorado using the pictures as a guide. So I do have to say this was a departure from the usual,
No pun intended. Departure.
Yeah. But this one, they're practically chasing her. Everything that happens, you see the scene that Rachel is in, and then they show the scene with the Postables in the exact same setting. So that I thought that was a very cleverly done vantage point, was to show that they are on her tail, and to put them in the Star Cruiser. It just, it changed up the pace a little bit. So what did you guys think of the mobile unit?
Well, before that, I was actually also going to say it's also different because they're really not chasing a letter story so much as a picture story, because it's all about the photographs. It's not really about the words that are written. And so that's kind of something else that really kind of makes this movie unique and sets it apart from the other ones, is that it's all about those pictures and not about the words.
Yeah, technically it was in the mail, but it's all about pictures. You're right. All about images.
Yeah, starting with 80s hair.
That was some big hair.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was very interesting. There are a lot of, once again, moving parts to this movie. Literally.
Oh my goodness, she said it.
And figuratively.
Oh my goodness. So about the big hair, I was born in 83.
She's old, y'all.
My oldest brother.
I'm just kidding.
I was born in 83. My oldest brother was 13 when I was born. So he was a teenager in the 80s. But, I go back and I think, oh, I know about the 80s. I was born in the 80s. I know about them. And then I go back and I see things set in the 80s and I just go, oh my word. I really didn't know that much, did I? So, I mean, I look at the clothes, I look at the hair, and I just see the things that were the norm, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, was that really like that? It's so odd. It's so odd for me. And that was I'm very used to the clicking and winding cameras, but I didn't even think about cardboard versus plastic casing. Did you guys ever use those instant cameras?
Oh yeah, all the time. And I remember the cardboard ones. That was not just an 80s thing. That was an early 90s thing too. I was not born in the 80s, y'all. I was born in 1990. Thank you very much.
Barely out of the 80s.
Barely out of the 80s.
Barely.
5 months out of the 80s. I'm a proud 90s kid.
Did you guys ever use them at weddings? Because I remember I remember at least 3 weddings where I used them.
Oh yeah, we used them at they were at weddings all the time. I remember my mom was like, Kaycee, stop playing with the camera. And I'm like, but Mom, no, like disposable cameras, that was the rage for me all the way up till like 2004. Honestly, like I used them all the way up. I would take them to school on the last day of school, take pictures of all my friends.
I never took them to school.
College.
I remember taking them on vacations.
I used them. Yeah, that's another one. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh, camp?
And they were cheaper than getting your own camera.
Mm-hmm.
Camp.
Yes, camp. I remember I had 2 for camp, and I was like, okay, I have 48 pictures and there's 5 days. Must use my pictures
only 48.
wisely. And I have to tell y'all a funny story with pictures too. So I started babysitting when I was about 14, 15, 16, right? And this is like phasing out the disposable cameras, and everything was going digital, right? And so whenever I would babysit the certain family and their 3 kids, I would always take my camera because it was just something fun, something different we could do. Yeah. And the son, who must have been like 7 or 8 at the time, and I was maybe like 16, 17 by this point, and he was like, Miss Kaycee, what they do back then when you couldn't see your photo on the camera? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, like back then when you were young, they didn't have that. So like, how did you know what you were taking a picture of? I was like, you just looked through the hole and you just snapped and hope it turned out okay.
You hope it turned out okay.
You didn't get a preview? No.
And you had to go get them developed and wait for them.
His mind was like blown.
Oh my gosh. I do have to say that was one point where, because usually if Oliver says something profound, I'm usually like, yes, that's my man, Oliver. But I do have to say that I like the idea of being able to look at the picture I took and delete it if I need to, because if you're like this, then it's not only imperfect, you don't catch the photo. Mm-hmm. So that is one thing that I do not miss about those kinds of cameras is, that, and especially if a kid gets hold of it, then it's gone. I mean, there were so many times when a kid would get a hold of a camera and the whole camera would be gone with pictures of the carpet and the wall.
Like in this story, you get a picture of a melon stand.
Or their like face. Because our generation,
or half their face,
just their nose or their eye.
And I will say, our generation, we're the original selfie people, because do you guys remember doing it with the disposable camera, doing this thing, holding it out, taking a picture?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And so it was, that is one thing I do not miss about those, is you get a chance to see what kind of picture you took. You can take a better one if you need it. And and you also don't have to worry about a child taking a whole bunch of pictures, because you can delete them. So. All right, so let's talk about characters, because the big thing that is connecting all of our characters in this movie is secrets. All of them are either keeping secrets or dealing with the secrets that are being kept. Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about Rachel first. Oh, poor Rachel. She's got a lot to deal with, being a scorned mayor's wife. So
yes, and it's still very fresh for her, because it's been 6 months since he was incarcerated.
Yeah. And I will come right out and say that I anticipated more danger. With the whole mood of, and they are afraid that he's kidnapped, and Minnie takes them in and they get a place to stay at the lodge, and she's so relieved. And I just, even with the money gone, the fact that people are taking her in and she seems to constantly be on the run, I anticipated there being more danger to the story. But I will say that the fact that she had the actress had a very good internal battle. Kaycee, I think you were talking about that. Why don't you give us your take on it?
Yeah, because like the internal battle of Rachel is really, for me, I was like, okay, as a mom, if I were a scorned mayor's wife, what would I be thinking? How would I embody Rachel, you know? So it was like this internal battle for her of protecting her son and then getting away from the gossip and then trying to figure out what to do next. And it's like, also she hasn't told Danny the truth about his father. Danny thinks that he's taken a new job somewhere. So like now you've lied to your kid.
Right.
So you have to deal with all of these emotions and like, what do you do? And I know for some people, avoidance is a big thing. Like I admittedly am a big avoider of like hard things. Like it's very, it's very hard for me to confront hard things, hard, difficult things. Like I like my life happy and peppy. It's not always like that. But when it's like a deep and internal and deep-seated thing, I really just try to push it to the side. And I feel like Rachel was probably trying to do the same thing, but she can't, not for the sake of her kid. And, you know, when you bury something so deeply like that, it eats at you. And then we'll get to that a little bit later with her conversation with Shane. But I think you know, the running away, that's just all the external things that we're seeing. But I think the letter story is really trying to portray a deeper internal thing. It's really trying to get you to empathize with the character.
Well, and it's really interesting that you would say that, because one of the things that I made sure I wrote down is Norman's grandmother told him, face the scary. And you know, that is something that everybody learns, isn't it? Everybody learns that in this movie. And I have to say that the people that helped Rachel along the way, I thought that they made up a great supporting cast. Minnie, for instance, she was fantastic, and she was the very, just like Oliver said, she was the very embodiment of a good Samaritan. She really lived what she taught and what she portrayed herself as. One of my favorite things is when she gives Rachel an entire pie and she says, "It's for tonight. It won't solve any of your troubles, but just for a moment."
Yeah.
And then she says something very profound. Sometimes a moment is all that we need to know where we need to go to next. And that's, you know, that was one thing I really appreciated about Rachel, because, you know, I was a little confused when she hadn't told Danny about his dad, but then she was driving to Cannon City where the jail was. Awkward. But then she kept driving, and so that was portrayed really well, because she had every intention of going, but then she lost her nerve. And sometimes a moment is all that we need to know where we need to go to next. And if anybody needed to know where to go next, it was Rachel.
Yeah, I think she just had way too many things going on in her mind that she just, like you said, Minnie gave her that moment of clarity.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when you're under a lot of stress and when you're under a lot of pressure, like you can't think straight. You're just going off of the emotions, and then you freak out, and then sometimes, and then also with the kid. I mean, for goodness sakes, Danny's all over there like, "Ma, ma, ma, ma." Like,
I want my daddy. I want Verdi.
Yeah, and when you're hearing that in the background, and you're just like, oh my word, I just need a moment's peace for a second so I can think of what to do. You know, it's just like one of those things where I don't blame Rachel for like running and avoiding everything, because you mentioned the Cannon City thing, because that's also a good point. Like, why are you going to go here and just spring on your son Your dad's in jail, you know?
And here we are.
Surprise. Not the dinosaurs. It's dad in jail.
It's not the dinosaurs.
He's just got a new work uniform. It's just orange. I mean, you know, it's fine.
It's all good.
But I mean,
to play.
But for Rachel, if she's avoiding and she's waiting to the 11th hour, of course she's going to make the rash decision of moving to Canyon City. And then she's going to say, this is where daddy has his new job. And then she's going to say, well, actually, she's delaying the inevitable is really what she's doing.
Yeah.
And also, it's hard to know, too, how to exactly explain to your 7-year-old what's going on.
Yeah.
And the concept of that. So
it's a very grown-up thing.
Yeah, it's very complicated for poor Rachel.
Yeah. So Jess, let's hear your take on Minnie.
I loved Minnie. I thought she was fun. Albeit she wasn't a great liar.
No, she was a terrible liar.
They're all terrible liars.
But yeah, I mean, like you said, she was the epitome of the Good Samaritan. And, you know, if I had been her and hearing Rachel talk about, well, I lost my wallet, la da 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 da, you know, especially coming from the background that I do of like my previous job, I would have like not believed her for 1 second. I would have been like,
well, and as a business owner, you know, that's your livelihood right there. The cafe is her livelihood.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And like this girl's acting all suspicious, and I would not have believed her. I would have thought something was up, but Minnie just kind of takes her word for it and puts her faith in Rachel. And she sees little Danny in the background, and I think she kind of maybe puts a little bit of the pieces together just because her son is with her. Maybe, I don't know, but
yeah.
But yeah, Minnie's great, and she makes great pie. How can you not love her?
That apple pan pie. I mean, if it kept Norman coming back, it had to be pretty good.
That's really delicious. But I think that's also part of Minnie's character because she has the love thy neighbor as thyself.
The plaque, yeah.
And so it makes sense as to why she would take somebody in, is because she is living that out.
Yeah. The scene that really spoke to me as a mom, because Kaycee, you talked about what you would do as a mom. The scene that really spoke to me as a mom was when they were inside the motel room. And because that was when Rachel was able to take a breath. And she, like you said, had a moment's peace. And that was when the emotion could come out. And it reminded me a lot of what I've tried to do to get my kids through the virus. Because being cooped up and in lockdown, my children did not understand why they couldn't go and see their friends. My girls had a really hard time with being told that, no, we're going to keep you home for school. You can't go to school with your other friends. And something that Rachel said, I don't know how to fix it. And she just broke down. And I've told my kids, I said, I am trying the hardest that I can to get you through the coronavirus because I don't know how. We have never been through anything like this the whole time I've been alive. So I don't know how to handle it. I am learning with you. And so for her to just, and the other thing is she said, I know you miss daddy. You know, she didn't try to brush it away. She's still not telling the honest truth, but she's acknowledging. And, you know, and it got Danny to say, I'm sorry, I won't talk about daddy. And he went, no, it's not your fault. So just for her to have a place that is safe and a place where she can connect her thoughts and connect her feelings and connect with her son. That was the scene that as a mom spoke to me the most. All right, let's get to the Postables. Let's talk about them. Let's first talk about dear sweet Norman.
Oh, Norman.
All right, Jess, give it to us. What are the secrets that Norman is keeping?
He does not know how to drive. He has his learner's permit, but he's never he's never gone beyond. He renews it. He still renews it every year. That's the fun part. Is that
which
he renews it, but
which makes the line, "Can I drive you to the airport?" in From the Heart even funnier. You know, he says, "Can I drive you to the airport?" And Rita says, "Oh, Norman, you don't have a car." You know, and so that now we find out, not only does he not have a car, he can't drive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And his first experience is going to be a giant Star
Cruiser. Oh my gosh. I thought, Oliver, are you insane? You're going to teach a guy to drive with this bus of a thing that is 10 feet long, or longer than that even. You know, just like, it's 10 feet wide. Come on.
He was probably thinking, all we're doing is going straight, so it should be fine.
Oh my God.
And it was fine, minus a sign and a mattress that nobody could have expected.
Of course.
I mean, but if I had been taught to drive at any age, if I had been taught to drive in something like that, I would have panicked. There is no way I would have been able to drive something like that without prior knowledge of driving. I still don't know that I would be able to handle something like that. So, you know, it's scary.
It is scary. But so this is a deleted scene. We actually find out why Norman is driving averse.
Yeah, go ahead, Kaycee.
So he, as a child, when he was younger, he rode a unicycle and tried to ride it up a slide, and it flipped on him and it hit him on the head. And since then, as a child, he didn't have trouble with anything else except for wheeled objects. So that explains why Norman probably gets the irks when he's behind the wheel.
Yeah.
Probably freaks out a little bit of like, you know.
And Kaycee, what's the other secret that Norman is keeping from Rita?
He's terrified of fathering a child.
This was the sweetest and saddest thing, you know, because I remember because I was born with a birth defect that affects the left side of my body physically. My hand and my leg, they don't work right. And I remember going to my mom and saying, "Mom, do you think that when I have children that they're going to be affected by this? Are my kids going to have are they going to have left hemiplegia? And are their bodies not going to be able to work right?" Because it took me a very long time and lots of physical therapy and being hooked up to electric therapy to stimulate the muscles to get where I am now. And it was a very big concern for me. And that doesn't even go as deep as what Norman's worried about. So you know, it was a very valid worry, I thought.
Yeah, but Rita's response is perfect. You know, they only see the different. They don't see the amazing, and that's like,
go ahead.
That's her. Like, I don't know. I love. That's maybe my favorite scene from this movie is the conversation that they have, because Rita sees Norman, and she sees, you know, he's quirky, sure, but that's what makes him Norman, and that's why she loves him so much, is because of those quirks, not in spite of them. And so I just think that's such a beautiful message, because how many kids go through life, you know, with something different about them, and they think that that's something bad. You know, I grew up being well, I still am very introverted. But when I was a kid, that wasn't like, people didn't know like introvert, extrovert, like they didn't talk about that. I literally thought something was wrong with me because I didn't know how to like interact with other kids in the same way. And so it's just a beautiful message that, you know, being different is what makes you amazing. And it's not something that you should be afraid of. And as Rita says, like, they're going to have children one way or another, adoption, biological, and they will be like Norman because he's going to be a great father. And it's so beautiful.
I know. I love that conversation. And I also love that Norman was just like, and I think we should adopt. And Rita, it was almost like a relief on Rita. I feel like Rita was anticipating, like, Norman's going to say he doesn't want children with me ever. And when he says adopt, she was like, is that all this was?
She's like, well, duh. Of course we're going to adopt.
We're going to have a rainbow of babies, however they come.
A whole, that was the thing, a whole rainbow of babies, and I don't care how they come to us. Biological, adoption, what have you. And then, of course, I love this because, and this is going to kind of help us transfer over to Shane and Oliver, because when Shane says there's something going on between those two, but they're still holding hands. And then Shane and Oliver hold hands as they're starting to talk. And Shane says, can we still hold hands while I'm working through it? Which I thought was a small but beautiful example of unconditional love. Because even I will be the first to admit that if I'm upset at my husband, I don't want it to be anywhere near him. And I'm just like, I am mad at you, go away. And even, even my children, if they, if they say something rude to me, or they're downright mean, or they lash out and hit me, I'm just like, okay, I need to be away from you for a minute. I don't immediately want to cuddle them.
Right.
I'm just like, leaving now before I get angry.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I really thought was adorable, was the fact that something is going on. And thank heavens Norman doesn't try to hide that something is going on. He says, I need to talk to you. I just don't know how. And I know that I love you. So something is going on, but they're still holding hands. And then Shane and Oliver, something is going on between them, but they're still holding hands.
Still holding hands. And like theirs is, is what I really like about, Shane and Oliver here is that Oliver just completely puts his trust in Shane. He doesn't, he asked the question, who is Alex Brighton? He's direct, which is kind of surprising for Oliver, that he's very direct here. But he's just like, okay, like, I will let you tell me on your own terms. He's got to be curious. He saw the text. He's dying. Like, oh no, this is another Steve,
Right.
like someone from her past. But he trusts her, and he does not pressure her he's not like, come on, you can tell me. I thought we were close. I thought, whatever, so.
Right. It wasn't another breakdown of a relationship. Like, how dare you keep this from me?
Right.
So yeah, that was something that was really nice for them.
All right. So let's go into Shane. Shane is keeping a secret of her sister. And this is a sister that we have never heard of before.
Yeah, this one came out of left field.
Everybody.
Yes, it came out of left field. That is totally true. So, who did you guys think was Alex Brighton when the movie started? Who did you think it was?
I think I thought it was an ex. Like, I think I thought it was another Steve.
Okay.
But like more than Steve though, because she's obviously so hurt by it. So I think I thought it was like somebody who would really, really hurt her.
I see. Okay. What about you, Kaycee? Who did you think it was?
I think I thought it was maybe a brother. Maybe.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know that I thought it was an ex because we already went there.
Uh-huh.
So I honestly, I really don't remember my initial thoughts, but I definitely didn't think it was a sister.
I thought it was Rachel. I thought that the letter story was going to tie into Shane's life somehow, and whatever she did to mess up, it said on the text that I messed up. I thought that Rachel was running because of something that she had messed up with or something like that, or it was a situation that she'd gotten herself into. And I thought Alex Brighton was Rachel.
I would have never thought that, but Kaycee, that's an amazing story idea. That would have never crossed my mind, but that would have been so good, because then it would have been like really personal if like Rachel turned out to be her sister or something,
or somebody close to her. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Kaycee, fan fiction.
Let's get it written. Right, just as soon as I get all that spare time I've been saving up. So do you guys think that I just love what Oliver said when she was finally ready to tell him who Alex was. And by the way, side note, I loved her outfit right here. The white blouse and the bronzed pants.
I did too. Yeah. It made Kristen's eyes really blue.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was an interesting contrast to Oliver's maroon pants. I had to giggle at Oliver's maroon pants because of I don't think we've ever seen him in maroon pants.
It feels very trendy for Oliver. I feel like maroon pants are like a thing now that are a little trendier than Oliver might choose, but Shane's rubbing off on him.
Shaking up.
Did you notice how he started out the movie very, very formal? He was in a navy blue tie and his navy suspenders. And by the way, they were both wearing navy in the beginning. They matched, which I thought was adorable. So he's in his formal suit. And then by the end of the movie, he's got his collar button undone. He's not wearing a tie. He's just wearing a coat, a shirt, and pants. It's a very casual look for Oliver. So he went through, I think being on the road had something to do with it probably, but just the fact that he went through this transition where he starts out regular formal Oliver and he slides into a more casual Oliver. I thought that was interesting. Anyway, side note. So when Shane said, I thought the sun rose and set with her, and he says, there's only one person I know of who's in charge of that. Everyone else you have to forgive for being human. And
profound, Oliver.
Oh my gosh. So simple and so profound, because we're all on this journey of life together, and because we're human, we're gonna mess up,
right?
And holding grudges and not speaking and refusing to see somebody's side is only going to make us sadder, and it's going to make us more miserable in this journey of life. But when we forgive others for being human the way we would like to be forgiven for being human, it just makes that journey all the more bearable because we can do it together.
Yeah. Yeah. And in this instance with Alex and Shane and the secrecy of the sister, I mean, it would be really, first of all, it would be really awkward for her to just be like, by the way, this is my sister, but I'm not going to talk to you about her. Like, so I can kind of understand her avoidance of talking about it right then and there, because she probably took a minute to like think of like what she was going to say. And then it was obvious at the end when we find out who Alex is, just the burden that Shane had to carry. And I'm sure that was a lot for her being, we assume she's the younger sister. Shane is the younger sister and Alex is the older sister.
Yeah, they talked about it. I can't remember the line, but Shane is the younger sister.
And that's a lot for a younger sibling to have the weight of. Because there's a hierarchy. It's always the older one. Everybody looks up to the older one. The older one's supposed to be the poster child. The older one's supposed to be doing all the right things and whatever. I'm the oldest child, so I feel like I could say that. So when your older sibling disappoints you, It's hard to shoulder that because you just feel the burden of that, and you feel the burden of that on your parents too, because now you feel like you have to be the one to take
you're
care
the one
of
you're the one that has to live with the effects,
and you're the one that has to like handle all of this stuff. And like, how could you? You're supposed to, and like the younger one's probably thinking you were the responsible one, you're supposed to be the one that was the good one. And I could see why she would get so hurt over it, and why she wouldn't talk to her sister or talk about her. I've known people who they've talked to other folks and they're like, wait, you have a sibling? How did I not know that? And it's the same reason. It's like, I don't talk about my sibling because it kind of hurts a lot. And it's never been brought up. So why should I bring it up?
Why bring up something traumatic?
Why bring up something that I don't have to if I don't need to?
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about the two endings. The ending of the letter story / picture story, right, Jess?
Right.
So let's talk about the end of the letter story and the end of the story for the Postables. Because it's one big, this is going to make it sound trite, and that's not what I'm trying to do, but it's one big healing fest. You know, everybody's healing from something.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Rachel and Shane make that deal.
Yeah, Rachel and Shane make the deal. And I'm glad that Shane did that, even though it doesn't really seem to connect. They've both been hurt by these people who are very close to them. So even though one is a spouse and one is a sibling, the fact that they made that deal, it kind of holds them both accountable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know some people are like, well, Shane could have just not done it.
If it was she would never.
But that's what I'm saying is like, Shane is, first of all, she is now Oliver's significant other, and Oliver is a stand-up guy, so he is going to not pressure her, but
he's going to make sure
he's going to hold her to her word. So that's that.
Kind of like Oliver was held to his word when he didn't tell what Norman's secret was, and she's like, well, I would be disappointed in you if you did.
Exactly.
Let's come back to that in just a second. Go ahead
but
Kaycee.
Shane is now like in the healthiest version of herself, so she is going to do the right thing, because if she's not going to do the right thing, it's still going to eat at her, and it's going to eat at her 10 times worse because she made a promise to some stranger that she doesn't go through with, you know. That's why she went with it. That's because I know that's been talked, like, oh, well, if it hurts that bad, you know, you could just say it and then leave. That's lying, folks.
Yeah,
that's lying.
Yeah, that is being dishonest in a very deep way. You know, I mean, maybe it wouldn't have hurt Rachel if she had never done it, but
Rachel wouldn't have ever known, you know.
No, but still, it's something. It's the principle, and I think it would have hurt Shane even deeper if she hadn't done it after giving her word. So we have the family uniting in the jail, and because I am the hooked Hardy, I have to put this in. Jason Cermak plays
the doctor.
The doctor in When Calls the Heart, and his character name was Jack, so I thought that was fun. You know, kind of put two things together from a different show that he's in. So yeah, that was fun. And we see that Jack was a wonderful father, and he was a good husband. He just got caught up in something that was too good to be true, and he wasn't smart about it, and he's now paying the consequence for it. And the look on his face when the two of them walk in, because visiting hours were almost over. If you look at the sign and you look at the clock, visiting hours were almost over, and he was getting scared that another day was going to pass, that he wasn't going to have a visitor. And then he sees them come in, and just the oh, I can't even say it. Just the look on his face and the way this probably wouldn't be allowed in a real prison, but it made for good TV.
Yeah.
Him running to his son and big hug and I found you, Daddy, and you sure did,
That was
buddy.
so sweet.
It
I
was
found you,
very
Daddy.
sweet. It was very sweet.
Especially because of the little game where he would hide Birdie,
Yeah.
had to find him.
Yeah. And just the very healing words that Rachel said, maybe I'm not ready to forgive you, but I love you.
Mm-hmm.
And she's there, which is one of the best things that you can do is show up. And speaking of showing up, we go to the DLO and oh boy. Mop.
Present.
So Shane makes the call to Alex, which, I mean, you can hear the tremor in her voice. It's already hard. Just the dialing. And I've had that kind of situation before where I had to have a really important conversation with somebody and it had to be over the phone because of physical distance or something like that. And just my hand would be shaking while I dialed. So I can totally empathize with her right there. And how she's trying to make conversation. She's trying to say things that are relevant, but not digging. And then Oliver is right there because he says that to her before. He says, Shane, I'm right here. That's what he says. He says, Shane, I'm right here. And he sticks to that. He's right there. He kisses her hand and he says, Kaycee,
tell her you have a boyfriend.
It's so cute. He said the B word. It's official. It's even Facebook. It's got to be Facebook official now.
They have moved from being a thing to being boyfriend and girlfriend.
Boyfriend and girlfriend.
I am not going to lie. So this movie with Shane and Oliver, their awkward flirting is very endearing and very adorable because it's like young, fresh love that they are free to explore and to show and make everybody else feel uncomfortable around them. It's very
Norman.
sweet. It's like Norman.
I.e. Norman.
But when Oliver O'Toole says the word boyfriend, which is very trendy for Oliver as one who is a quote unquote, using Shane's words, a human antique, I was expecting him to say like a beau or a something else, not boyfriend. So when he said that, I was like giggling like a child. Like I love that line though.
And then Shane follows it up with, he's everything I never knew I wanted, which I think is very profound in its own sense. And Kaycee's dying. So.
Who knew? I mean, from a one-sided conversation, Kaycee's melting over here.
I know, but it's so true because you go back to the pilot movie, you would never put them together. Ever in a million years. And now she has grown to love him. He has grown to love her. They have fallen in love and they've tested the waters as a couple. They are now ready to become an official thing. And she never knew she wanted him until she had him. He's everything I never knew I wanted. Because he's brought this whole perspective to her life, which is just beautiful. It's just such a beautiful thing. So, heart, love. All right. So, very quickly, let's just talk about the test thing because I said I would go back to it, so I might as well. But I, for one, I hate tests. I hate when I catch myself putting people through them, and I hate being put through them. Yeah. So what about you guys? What's your take on tests?
I love tests.
Are we talking about written tests, or are we talking
I'm really good at them.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being put through somebody's test in their head.
But how would I know if they don't tell me?
Because you say, like Oliver, was that a test, Miss McInerney?
But I do think that that Shane's response, again, she's very profound in this movie. It's like she says, you end up taking someone else's test that you never knew you were taking. And how true is that for many, I'm sure, many couples and relationships? I've seen it in other people, where someone is like, well, they keep doing this, and this, blah, blah. I'm like, but if you don't tell them like that this is bothering you, how are they ever supposed to know?
Exactly.
And they can't fix it. They can't read your mind. So I thought that was really, really profound of Shane too.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Kaycee?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Jess on that. Like, I don't know. I'm oblivious whenever I'm taking somebody else's test. I don't know. I mean, written tests give me anxiety, but whatever.
This is something that my mom is very guilty of, putting people through tests, and she won't say anything. And so she'll just kind of be passive aggressive when something's bothering her. But if people don't fulfill what she wants, it upsets her. And I've often said, Mom, did you say something? Well, no, they should have known. Like, oh dear. Okay.
Communication, people, is important.
Yes.
That's the moral of this story.
Yes, that is the moral of the story.
Communication.
So then let's go to the very, very happy ending. After all the healing has taken place, number 43, choose your best man. Number 44, choose your maid of honor. This is another, with all of that talk about Norman being afraid, you see him stand up on his own 2 feet on solid ground. He's a man. He has become a man so many times. And here's another point. There is no going back. And he says, you're the first friend I had who believed in me, which means so much to somebody like Norman. And you're the best man I know. And I want you to be my best man. It's just,
I loved his speech. So sweet.
Oh, I know. It's adorable. And then Rita to Shane. What? I mean, there's nothing we could really say about that.
What's interesting is Rita. So Shane has had all these sister issues, right?
Yes.
And then Rita confirms to Shane that Shane has had a sister after all. A sister in Rita.
Yes.
And Rita, I love when Rita said, even if I had a sister, I'd still ask you, and then she's going on about like
and that's nothing against my real sister that I don't have.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I could relate to that, because when I asked my maid of honor, I don't have a sister, so when I asked my maid of honor, who had been my best friend since the 7th grade, we share the same birthday and everything, which is really weird. But yeah, I was like, you're like my sister. I don't have a sister, but I would still pick you.
She can't imagine getting married without Shane being there. And of course, Norman. That was my favorite part.
Norman.
I can't imagine getting married, being married, or raising children without you. And Norman!
I think that must have been a really, really touching conversation for Crystal and Kristen in that moment. Just having done so many movies together over the course of how many years at this point, and they are very close.
That was probably a really subdued and reverent day on set. Yeah. Well, that concludes our discussion. Now comes the trivia.
Yay!
Yay! All right, number 1. What time was it on Shane's phone when she gets the first text from Alex?
10:46.
Nope.
Well, I'll guess 1:15.
9:16.
Oh, okay.
She's closer.
All right, but you had the 15 part that was closer. All right, what year did Amber Alerts start? It said it.
1997.
Okay.
96.
96. 1996 is when Amber Alerts started.
After the 80s.
After the 80s.
While I was still a child myself.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I was still a child. I was just older. I was an older child. All right. What did Oliver call the Star Cruiser? What was his name for the Star Cruiser?
Shall we take your recreational vehicle, Norman?
Mobile unit.
Yes, but what'd you say, Jess?
I said mobile unit.
The mobile command unit. Yes. And then he also refers to it as the mobile unit. Good job. Good job.
Yay!
Okay.
Got one.
What was the name of the hotel where the
hang on.
the party was held?
Hotel Mesa Pueblo.
Yeah!
I wrote it down.
All right. Last one, and it's a 2-parter. When Rachel bought the gummies for Danny, she was buying other groceries, and there was one price that it was with the gummies, and then take out the gummies, and it was a different price. And then the man just gave her the gummies, which was adorable. So what was the price before she took out the gummies, and what was the price after she took out the gummies?
1513.
You're actually very close with the
It was $15. It was $15 of something, right?
Okay, and then what would be your guess for the other one?
10 something.
Very good. I will take it. 1575, and then it goes to 1025. Good job.
Those are some expensive gummies.
I know.
I was thinking like a $2 difference, like $5.
Yeah, I know. I remember
there were.
that.
I think there were 2 bags. I think there were 2 bags.
Yeah, I was
there were
like,
2 bags.
holy moly! What kind of gummies are you buying?
Yeah.
Are all organic? 1 pound bag.
Oh man!
Locally,
all right,
organically grown.
Locally sourced gummies. Maybe they grew them on the farm, the Kelser farm. You know.
Yeah,
okay, you guys. Okay, moving on. Postables, thank you. Wrong movie. Thank you so much for joining us and for putting up with our giggles and our antics. We love all of you and hope that you have a fabulous day. Bye.
Bye. See you at To the Altar.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. For more juicy details and to hear what's coming up, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at DeliverMeAPod and on Instagram at DeliverMeAPodcast. And please check out our merch store for tons of Postables inspired merchandise to enhance your fandom. See you next week.